Hello and welcome. Today we're going to talk about reading the Bible for spiritual growth, okay? And I think we're going to go in a direction that you don't expect. And the reason why is because we often make a mistake when dealing with our spiritual maturity or our spiritual growth. And that mistake is that we associate spiritual maturity and spiritual growth with information, with learning. Okay, so if we learn something about God, we feel like we're spiritually growing. And that's an easy mistake to make because you are growing. Your mind is growing. You're growing intellectually, but that doesn't mean you're growing spiritually. So what I'm going to share with you today is a tip. It's just a tip, a way that I read the Bible, that I have started to read the Bible, that's helped me to grow spiritually and to get closer to God. And I think that those two things go hand in hand. I think that spiritual maturity and spiritual growth have more to do with proximity than they do with information. What that means is the closer you are to God, the more you will grow. And the more you know about God doesn't essentially mean that you're going to grow. Okay? It's more about that closeness than it is about the knowledge or the understanding. And I think true knowledge and true understanding come with proximity, come with closeness, come with intimacy. Okay, when you think about how you might know your significant other versus how you know certain other people, there's a deeper knowledge there. And not only that, there's this, and I don't want to call it mystical. I guess I'll call it divine. There's a divine transformation that happens as you draw near to God. Okay, it's kind of like in a weaker sense, if you've ever had someone in your life that has made you want to be a better person, and you think about the power that person had in your life when you hang around with them or when you spend time with them, think about how your actions and your thinking and whatnot were elevated, right? They're elevated to another level of goodness. Now, that's a very crude and small shadow of what happens when you interact with God. There's a divine exchange there. It's like our spirit is meant to conform to His image, and as we see that image, the spirit starts to take form. It starts to form into that. I don't want to get lost in that topic. I think that topic's great, but I don't have the depth to go there. I just know that it's there. I've seen it. I've experienced it. So back to reading the Bible. How do we read the Bible in a way that makes sense in that realm? Okay. When I used to read the Bible, I used to read the Bible for information. I would study the Bible. I would study the text, and so I don't know why I'm doing quotes under study. I really did study it. I mean, it's not a quote, but but what I'm saying is I would study the Bible and try to get as much information about God that I could so that I could defend my doctrines and my beliefs, and so I could be clever, and so that my knowledge would be more superior to others, and then I would feel like I'm more spiritually advanced. But it wasn't until later that I got a tip to read the Bible to spend time with God. And I know this sounds this is super basic stuff, right? How do you spend time with God? Well, you read the Bible. It's like, whoa, that's super simple. But when you think about how do you read the Bible, do you usually read it just to spend time with God? I didn't. I would always read it with a pencil and highlighters and try to it was almost like I was dissecting it on a desk, just give me the info. I wanted I wanted information. I didn't want relationship. And maybe I'm projecting a little bit. Maybe that's not what you want. But what I can say is, when I started reading the Bible just to hang out with Jesus, just to say, okay, Jesus is in that book, and if I want to spend time with Him, I got to go in there. And what it reminds me of, okay, if I could give another example, is my grandpa. Okay, my grandpa loved to tell stories. And he loved to tell the same stories. And if you have a grandpa like this, or anyone who you spend a lot of time with that's older, a lot of times they relive moments in their lives. And you got to ask yourself, why do they do that? Okay, why do they tell that story? Why do they love to tell that story? Well, the reason why, I think, is because it gives them a moment where they can spend that time with the people in that story. They spend that time reliving those moments as they remembered them, get that time with that person that may not even be here anymore, and have those fond memories about that person, and then they get to share that with you. Okay, so it's a little bit of a bringing that moment into this moment. It's a little bit of bringing that person into this relationship. And I think it functions the same way when you spend those times reading those familiar stories about Jesus, different things that he did, different moments in Jesus' life. One of my favorite moments, and this is like, before I never had favorite moments in Jesus' life, right? I would just know what Jesus did. He did X, Y, and Z, and this is what it means doctrinally and blah, blah, blah. But, when you have a favorite moment, it's something you like to revisit, And one of my favorite moments in Jesus' life is in John 14. He is about to die. He's about to go to Jerusalem, or he's in Jerusalem, and he's about to die. He's with his disciples, and his actions in that moment, what he does is he tries to prepare the disciples for what's about to come, and he's giving them like a pep talk, if you will, and he tells them, "I will not leave you as orphans." And he goes on to tell them, "I'm going to send a helper. I'm going to my Father, but I'm going to send a helper, and it's better that I send this helper." And he's trying to explain to them, when things go crazy, like, don't worry, I'm not leaving you. I'm preparing a place. I'm going to my Father. I'm sending a helper, all of these different things. And I love that about Jesus. It's like, if I was about to die, like, there'd be so many things on my mind, and I'd be so, I'd probably be paralyzed a bit by the fear or by the task before me. But instead of all that, he's just showing love to his disciples and sharing with them the future. He's giving them hope for the future. And I love that. I love that about Jesus, and I love that about that moment in his life. And I will read that. I'll read that over and over again. And it's not that I'm getting new information out of it. It's that I'm spending those moments with Jesus before he's going to die. And when he's telling his disciples, look, I want you to know these things. I want you to be secure. I want you to not feel abandoned. And I think that if anyone would read the Bible just to hang out with Jesus, and I don't want to get super technical about, okay, this is how you do it. I would say just go in there, read a familiar story, okay? Because it's something that you would typically probably not get a lot out of, because you say, oh, well, I've already read that. Read a familiar story and try to put yourself in that moment, and try to feel like you're standing there with Jesus in that moment. Maybe he's, driving people out of the temple. Maybe he's addressing the Pharisees. Maybe he's healing somebody. Maybe he's, maybe it's the moment where the woman who's caught in adultery has been thrown at his feet. Just think about those moments and put yourself, as you read it, put yourself in that situation. If you can't do it, read it again and try to put yourself in that situation and feel the gravity of the person of Christ. The same thing goes for hanging out with the Father. Read those moments where he's making that covenant with anyone. I mean, with Abraham, or when he's talking to Moses, or when he's talking to Job, and just feel the gravity of that situation and try to be in it, and just try to enjoy it. Okay, read it for enjoyment and for spending time with Jesus, or spending time with the Father. And I think you would get a lot out of that, because then the Bible's no longer, the Bible's no longer boring at that point. It's no longer like, oh man, I've already read this part. It's like, yes, I've read that part so many times. And it shouldn't be hard to do, because if you think about all the movies, think about your favorite movie that you can watch over and over again, right? And it's similar to that. Think about the characters and the reason why you like to spend time in that place. Why do you like to spend time in your favorite movie? And why can't you find a place like that in the Bible? Why can't you find a place like that in the life of Christ as he walked on the earth? Why can't you find a place like that in the hope for the future, when you think about Revelations and what's about to happen, and standing before God, and how God judges the earth, those moments, or those moments in heaven, I don't know. I could go on and on. All I'll do to close is just to encourage you to take some time to do that, and see how a regular habit of doing that changes your perspective and changes your outlook. Let me know how it goes. I'm looking forward to hearing about it. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.